Part 1: The Unwelcome Guest. There were hunters. They had always been hunters. Their bodies were built for killing, 7 feet tall, covered in thick fur that could stop a blade, with claws that could cut through metal like paper. Their eyes glowed yellow in the dark, and their teeth were made for tearing flesh. For thousands of years, they had been the most feared species in the galaxy. Their empire covered 12 star systems, and no one dared to challenge them. High Commander stood on the balcony of his fortress and watched the human ship descend through the clouds. It was a small vessel, painted white with blue stripes. Compared to the massive warships that filled the sky, it looked like a toy. "They are brave," said his advisor, a old named Bora, "or very stupid." Made a sound that was almost a laugh, perhaps both. The humans were new to space travel. They had only discovered faster-than-light engines 50 years ago, and they had only made contact with the Empire 3 years before this day. In that time, they had proven to be strange creatures. They were small and weak. They had no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons of any kind. Their skin was soft and easy to cut. A single warrior could kill 10 humans without breaking a sweat. And yet they kept coming. They sent their ships to every corner of the galaxy. They wanted to trade, to talk, to make friends. It was almost funny. The human ship landed in the courtyard below, watched as the doors opened and a group of humans walked out. There were 12 of them, diplomats, he had been told. They wore formal clothes and carried no weapons. At the front was their leader, a man named Ambassador. He was middle-aged, with gray hair and a calm face. Went down to meet them. "Welcome to Prime," he said, his translator device turning his growls into human words. "I am High Commander. I rule this world." Ambassador bowed his head slightly. "Thank you for receiving us, Commander. We come in peace, hoping to build friendship between our peoples." Studied the humans. They were so small. The tallest among them barely reached his chest. How did such creatures survive in the universe? How did they build ships and cities when they were so fragile? His eyes moved across the group and stopped on a young woman standing near the back. She was younger than the others, perhaps 23 years old. She had long black hair tied back in a simple style, and her eyes were warm brown. Unlike the other diplomats who stood stiff and formal, she was looking around with open curiosity. She seemed fascinated by everything: the architecture of the fortress, the plants in the courtyard, the guards standing at attention. "Who is that one?" asked, pointing at her. Ambassador glanced back. She is our junior cultural. She studies other species and their customs." "She looks like a cub." "She is young, yes, but very talented. She has a gift for understanding others." Grunted. He did not care about human talents. They were here for trade negotiations, nothing more. He would listen to their offers, reject most of them, and send them away. That was how they did things. The negotiations began the next morning. They were long and boring. The humans wanted to trade technology. They wanted to exchange cultural materials. They wanted permission to send researchers to study history. Listened with half his attention, giving vague answers that committed him to nothing. During breaks, he noticed that the young woman kept wandering away from the group. She would walk through the halls of his fortress, looking at paintings and sculptures. She would stop to watch the servants work. Once, he saw her kneeling beside a fountain, trailing her fingers through the water like a child. "You has no discipline," he told Ambassador on the second day. The ambassador smiled. "Is curious by nature. She means no disrespect. She simply wants to understand your world." "There is nothing to understand. We are warriors, we conquer, that is all." "With respect, Commander, no species is that simple. Everyone has stories, traditions, things they care about beyond war." Did not answer. He did not like being told what his people were or were not. On the third day, the negotiations continued as before. Sat through endless discussions about trade routes and resource sharing. By midday, he was ready to end the talks and send the humans home. They had nothing to offer that they could not take by force. Then a guard burst into the meeting room. "Commander, there has been a breach." Was on his feet instantly, his claws extending. "What kind of breach?" "The sacred grove, sir. Someone has entered the nursery grounds." The room went silent. The sacred grove was the most protected place on Prime. It was where the noble families raised their cubs during the first years of life. No outsider had ever set foot there. No outsider would dare. "Who?" demanded. The guard looked at the human delegation. His yellow eyes filled with anger and confusion. "One of them, sir, the young female. She walked right past the barriers." Turned to Ambassador. The human's face had gone pale. I am sure there has been a misunderstanding," said quickly. "Would never." "Your has entered sacred ground," said, his voice like thunder. "She has violated our most important laws. Do you understand what this means?" Swallowed hard. "Commander, please, whatever has happened, I am sure it was an accident, would not. The punishment for entering the sacred grove is death." The words hung in the air like a blade waiting to fall. Turned and walked toward the door. His guards fell in behind him. He moved fast, his long legs carrying him through the fortress corridors toward the ancient forest where his people raised their young. He did not know what he would find there, but whatever it was, the human would pay for her crime. That was the way. No exceptions. No mercy. Part 2, The Sacred Grove. Had not meant to break any rules. She had simply followed a sound. The diplomatic compound was beautiful but cold. Everything was made of dark stone and metal. They did not believe in decoration for its own sake. Their buildings were strong and practical, built to last forever but not to comfort. After 3 days of sitting in meeting rooms and listening to trade discussions, felt like she was suffocating. During the lunch break, she slipped away from the others. She just wanted to walk, to breathe fresh air, to see something real. The compound had gardens, she knew. She had seen them from the windows. Perhaps she could find a quiet corner to sit and think. She walked through empty hallways, following the sunlight. The fortress was huge, and soon she was completely lost. But she did not mind. Getting lost was sometimes the best way to find interesting things. Then she heard it. A chirping sound, high and musical. It was coming from somewhere ahead, beyond a row of tall trees. It sounded almost like birds, but not quite. There was something different about it, something playful and alive. Moved toward the sound. She passed through an archway covered in climbing vines and found herself in a forest. The trees here were ancient, their trunks wider than houses, their branches reaching up to touch the sky. The air smelled like rain and growing things. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating patches of gold on the ground. She walked deeper into the forest, following the chirping sounds. They were getting closer. She could hear other sounds too now, small growls, the rustle of movement, the thump of something hitting the ground. Then she stepped into a clearing and stopped. There were 6 of them. They were but small children, cubs. The oldest was perhaps a meter tall, reaching just above waist. The youngest was even smaller, barely able to walk steadily. They had the same fur and claws as the adults, but everything about them was softer. Their eyes were wide and round. Their movements were clumsy and playful. They were practicing hunting. A holographic creature floated in the center of the clearing, some kind of small animal that did not recognize. The cubs were circling it, taking turns to pounce. They were not very good at it. One cub jumped too early and crashed into another. A third tripped over his own feet. They made frustrated chirping sounds, picked themselves up, and tried again. Watched with her hand over her mouth, trying not to laugh. They were adorable. These were the children of the most feared warriors in the galaxy, and they were as clumsy and silly as any puppies she had seen on Earth. Then the smallest cub noticed her. The cub was female, with silver-white fur that gleamed in the sunlight. She was standing at the edge of the group, watching the others practice. When she saw, her round eyes went wide. She made a small sound, not a warning but a question. The other cubs turned. One by one, they spotted the strange creature standing at the edge of their clearing. Knew she should be afraid. Even these small cubs had claws that could hurt her. Their teeth were already sharp. If they attacked together, she would be in serious trouble. But they did not attack. Instead, they stared at her with pure curiosity. They had never seen anything like her before. She had no fur, no claws, no fangs. She was tall and thin and stood on two legs like they did, but everything else about her was different. The silver cub took a step toward her. Made a decision. Instead of running or calling for help, she did what felt natural. She knelt down slowly, making herself smaller. She put her hands on her knees, palms open, showing that she held no weapons, and she smiled. "Hello there," she said softly. Her translator turned the words into, but she kept her voice gentle and warm. The silver cub took another step, then another. The other cubs followed, forming a loose circle around. They sniffed the air, trying to understand her scent. She smelled strange, like nothing they had ever encountered, but she did not smell dangerous. She did not smell like a threat. "My name is," she said, still nailing. "What's your name?" The silver cub was very close now, close enough to touch. She tilted her head, studying his face. Then she reached out with one small paw and touched his cheek. The paw was warm. The claws were retracted. "Soft," the cub said, her voice barely more than a whisper. "You're so soft." "I am," agreed. "Humans are soft. We don't have fur like you." "Doesn't it hurt, being so soft?" "Sometimes, but we manage." The silver cub made a decision. She moved forward and climbed into his lap, settling there like it was the most natural thing in the world. She pressed her small body against warmth and made a sound that had never heard before. She was purring. "Oh, breathed. Oh, you're beautiful." The other cubs watched their sister with wide eyes. Then, one by one, they moved closer. A large male cub claimed shoulder, hooking his small claws into her uniform to hold on. Two more pressed against her sides. The remaining two sat in front of her, close enough to touch. Sat very still, surrounded by apex predator children, and felt something she had not expected. She felt safe. She did not know that guards were already coming. She did not know that she had broken the most sacred law on the planet. She did not know that warriors were running through the forest with weapons drawn, ready to kill her for her crime. All she knew was that 6 small cubs had chosen to trust her. And she would not betray that trust. Part 3: Warriors at the Edge. Guard Captain had served the High Commander for 20 years. He had fought in 3 wars. He had killed more enemies than he could count. He was not afraid of anything. But when he stepped into the sacred grove and saw what was waiting there, he felt something cold move through his chest. The human was sitting in the center of the clearing. The noble cubs, the children of the most powerful families on Prime, were piled around her like she was their mother, like she belonged there, like this was normal. It was not normal, it was impossible. "Captain," one of his warriors whispered, "what do we do?" Did not answer. He could not answer. His mind was still trying to understand what his eyes were seeing. The silver-white cub, that was Myra, daughter of Lady, one of the most respected nobles in the Empire. She was sitting in the human's lap, her eyes half closed, purring like a domestic animal. Purring. Cubs did not purr for strangers. They did not purr for anyone outside their immediate family. Another cub had climbed onto the human's shoulder. 2 more were pressed against her sides. The remaining 2 were circling the group, and as his warriors approached, those 2 cubs turned to face them. Their small claws extended. Their baby fangs showed. They hissed. "Stay back," the larger of the 2 cubs said. His voice was young and unsteady, but his meaning was clear. "You're scaring them." Felt his confusion turn to anger. These cubs were defending a human. They were treating an outsider like pack. This was wrong. This was against everything they believed. "Move away from the cubs," he ordered the human. "Now." The woman looked up at him. She had calm brown eyes and a gentle face. She did not look afraid, which was strange. Most creatures were terrified when 12 warriors surrounded them with weapons ready. "I can't do that," she said. Her voice was soft and steady. "If I move, I'll scare them. They're comfortable right now. I don't want to upset them." "You don't want to upset them." Hand moved to his sword. "Human, you have invaded our most sacred ground. You have touched our children. The punishment is death." "I understand," the woman said. She still did not move. "But right now, these cubs have chosen to sit with me. I won't push them away just because you're uncomfortable." One of his warriors growled, "Captain, let me." No, held up his hand. The cubs were too close to the human. If his warriors attacked, the children might be hurt. He could not allow that. But he could not allow this situation to continue either. He drew his sword. The blade sang as it left the sheath, catching the sunlight. It was a beautiful weapon passed down through his family for generations. It had killed many enemies. The cubs reacted instantly. All 6 of them moved at once, forming a protective circle around the human. Even little Myra scrambled out of her lap and stood in front of her, tiny claws extended, silver fur standing up in warning. They were too young to be truly dangerous. A grown could push them aside with one hand. But the message was clear. These cubs had claimed the human as pack. They would fight to protect her. "This is madness," said. "Cubs, move away. This creature is not your kind. She is prey." "She's not prey," Myra said. Her small voice shook, but she did not back down. "She's warm. She's nice. She didn't try to hurt us. She invaded your territory. She just walked here. She just wanted to see." The cub looked back at again. She smiled at us. She wasn't scared. Did not know what to say. In all his years, he had never encountered anything like this. Cubs were taught from birth that outsiders were threats. Their instincts were supposed to make them attack strange creatures, not protect them. But these cubs were not attacking. They were defending. More warriors arrived through the trees. Then nobles came, mothers and fathers of the cubs, their faces twisted with shock and horror. Lady pushed to the front, her elegant features pale. "Myra," she called, "come here, come to me right now." Myra looked at her mother. Then she looked at. The human woman reached out and gently stroked the cub's silver fur. "It's okay," said softly. "You can go if you want. I won't be upset." Myra pressed closer to instead. "No," the cub said, "I want to stay." Lady made a sound of pure distress. Her daughter was choosing a human over her own mother. Her daughter was treating an alien like family. Then the crowd parted, and High Commander stepped into the clearing. He was taller than the other, broader, more powerful. His presence filled the space like a storm. When he saw the scene before him, the human surrounded by noble cubs, warriors frozen at the edge, swords drawn but useless, his yellow eyes burned with fury. "What," he said, his voice shaking the leaves, "is happening here?" No one answered. No one could. Part 4, The Standoff. The standoff lasted for 2 hours. In that time the sun moved across the sky, shadows shifted, the air grew warmer then cooler, and still no one moved. High Commander stood at the edge of the clearing, surrounded by his warriors and the noble families. His sword was in his hand. His claws were extended. Every muscle in his body was tight with controlled rage. But he did not attack. He could not attack. The cubs had formed a living shield around the human woman. If he ordered his warriors to strike, the children would be hurt. If he tried to pull the cubs away by force, they would fight back. He had already seen how they reacted when anyone moved too close, hissing, clawing, baring their small fangs. These were not trained warriors. They were bobbies playing at defense, but their instincts were real. Their determination was real. And the human at the center of it all sat perfectly still, her hands resting gently on her knees, her face calm. "Human," said for the 3rd time, "tell me what you have done to our children." Nothing, Commander. Her voice was patient, like she was explaining something to a child. I walked into this clearing. I saw them playing. I knelt down and said hello. They came to me on their own. That is impossible. And yet here we are. Felt his claws dig into his palms. This woman was infuriating. She showed no fear. She showed no respect for the danger she was in. She sat there surrounded by apex predator cubs, watched by 100 warriors ready to kill her, and she acted like she was having a pleasant afternoon. Our cubs do not bond with outsiders, he said. It is not in their nature. Their instincts would never allow it. Maybe their instincts told them I wasn't a threat. You are prey, you are small and weak. Of course you are not a threat. Then why would they be afraid of me? Opened his mouth to answer, then stopped. The human had a point. Cubs were taught to fear creatures that could hurt them. They were taught to be careful around things that might attack. But a human, a soft, clawless, fangless human. Perhaps to the cubs she was simply interesting. Lady stepped forward. Her eyes were wet with tears she was too proud to shed. Myra, she said, her voice breaking, please, come to Mother. I'm not angry. I just want you to be safe. Myra looked at her mother. The little cub's silver fur was pressed flat against her body now, a sign of stress. She could feel the tension in the clearing. She knew everyone was upset, but she did not understand why. Mother, she said slowly, why are you scared of her? She's nice. She's a stranger, my love. Strangers can be dangerous. But she's not dangerous. She's soft. She doesn't even have claws. Myra held up her own small paw, showing her sharp little nails. See, I have claws. She doesn't. How can she hurt anyone? It's not about hurting. It's about. Lady struggled to find the words. How do you explain generations of instinct to a cub who was feeling something different? The largest male cub, who had been standing guard near shoulder, spoke up. She smells like safety, he said. I don't know how to explain it. When I'm near her, I feel calm, like nothing bad can happen. That's impossible, one of the noble fathers said. Humans are aliens. They smell like nothing familiar. Maybe that's why, said quietly. Everyone looked at her. She took a slow breath. On my world, we have a saying, children and animals know who to trust. They can sense things that adults forget how to feel. She looked at the cubs around her, these small hunters who had chosen her warmth over their parents' calls. Your cubs don't have any reason to fear me. I'm not competing for territory. I'm not hunting in their space. I'm just here, sitting, being warm. Being warm is not a reason to bond, said. Isn't it? Met his yellow eyes without flinching. When was the last time someone was just warm with them, not training them, not testing them, not preparing them for war? When was the last time someone just sat with them and let them be cubs? The question hung in the air. They were warriors. They raised their children to be warriors. From the moment a cub could walk, they began training, hunting exercises, combat drills, survival tests. It was the way. It had always been the way. But looked at the cubs in the clearing, at little Myra pressed against the human side, at the others who had stopped hissing and were now simply sitting, relaxed and content, and he wondered. When had these cubs last been allowed to just be children? Commander, Ambassador pushed through the crowd. His face was pale with worry. Please, is young, she made a mistake. She did not know this place was forbidden. I beg you, show mercy. Looked at the ambassador. Then he looked at the human woman still surrounded by cubs. You ask me to show mercy, he said slowly. But mercy is weakness. The do not show weakness. Then don't show weakness, said. Her voice was still calm, still steady. Show wisdom. Wisdom. These cubs chose to sit with me. If you drag them away by force, if you punish me for something I didn't understand, what lesson do they learn? That their instincts were wrong, that choosing kindness leads to death. She looked at him, and for a moment saw something ancient in her soft brown eyes, something that did not belong to a young woman from a weak species, something that spoke of depths he could not understand. Or, she continued, you could ask yourself why your children chose a stranger. You could wonder what they felt. You could learn. The clearing was silent. Then slowly, High Commander lowered his sword. Part 5. What Predators Forgot. The warriors sheathed their swords one by one. The tension in the clearing began to fade, like fog burning away in morning sunlight. The cubs, sensing the change, relaxed even further. Myra climbed back into his lap and resumed her purring. High Commander walked forward. His warriors moved to stop him, but he waved them back. He crossed the clearing alone, his massive form casting a long shadow over the human woman and the cubs around her. He stopped 3 steps away and looked down at her. Looked up at him without fear. You are either very brave, said, or very foolish. Probably both, admitted. My teachers always said I was too curious for my own good. Curiosity killed many creatures. It also helped many creatures learn. Made a sound that might have been a laugh. He lowered himself to the ground, sitting on his heels so that his eyes were level with hers. This close could see the details of his face, the scars from old battles, the gray in his fur, the weight of command in his yellow eyes. Tell me about your species, he said. Tell me why you are the way you are. Stroked Myra's fur gently as she spoke. Humans evolved on a dangerous world. We were not the strongest creatures there. We were not the fastest. We had no armor, no venom, no natural weapons of any kind. By all logic, we should have been eaten to extinction. Yet you survived. We survived because we learned to connect, smiled, remembering lessons from her childhood. On Earth, we share our world with creatures called wolves. They are pack hunters, smart and fierce. They should have been our enemies. Instead, we found ways to work together. We gave them food and warmth. They gave us protection and companionship. Over many generations, wolves became dogs, our closest friends. Frowned, you made predators into pets. We made predators into family, there's a difference. Looked at the cubs around her. We did the same with cats, with horses, with birds of prey. We looked at dangerous creatures and thought, what if we were not enemies? What if we could help each other? That sounds like weakness, relying on others. Or maybe it's the greatest strength of all. No creature can survive alone forever, not even apex predators. Met his eyes steadily. The built an empire through war, but empires built only on strength eventually fall. There is always someone stronger waiting. And what do humans build their empires on? Trust, connection, the belief that we are stronger together than apart. The clearing was quiet. The other watched this exchange in stunned silence. No human had ever spoken to the High Commander this way. No one had ever challenged philosophy so directly. But did not seem angry, he seemed thoughtful. When I was young, he said slowly, there was an elder in my village. She was very old, too old to fight anymore. The other warriors ignored her. What use was a who could not hunt? But she used to tell stories. Stories about the old times before the empire, before the wars. She said our ancestors were different. Different how? She said they knew how to trust. They formed bonds with creatures from other worlds, not as prey or enemies but as partners. They believed the galaxy was full of possible friends, not just possible conquests. Shook his head. I thought they were just stories, children's tales. Maybe they were memories, said softly. Maybe your ancestors knew something your empire forgot. Looked at Myra, still purring in the human's lap. He looked at the other cubs, relaxed and content in ways he rarely saw them. These children were supposed to be warriors in training. They were supposed to learn that the universe was full of threats. But right now they looked happy, just happy. Human, he spoke her name carefully, like he was learning a new language. What would you have me do? I would have you ask questions instead of giving orders, just this once. Ask these cubs what they felt when they saw me. Ask them why they chose to sit with me instead of running away. Ask them what they want. Turn to Myra. The silver cub looked up at him with wide, innocent eyes. "Little one," he said, his voice gentler than anyone had ever heard it, "why did you go to this human?" Myra thought about it seriously, the way children think about important questions. "Because she smiled," Myra said finally. "Everyone else looks at us like we're supposed to be something, supposed to be strong, supposed to be brave, supposed to be warriors." She pressed closer too. "She just looked at us like we were nice, like she was happy to see us, like we didn't have to be anything except ourselves." Was silent for a long moment. Then he stood and turned to face the gathered crowd. Warriors, nobles, parents, servants, they all watched him, waiting for his judgment. "The human will not be punished," he announced. His voice carried across the clearing like thunder. "She broke our law, but she taught us something more valuable than any law. She taught us what we have forgotten." Lady stepped forward. "Commander, with respect, what have we forgotten?" Looked at his people, these proud, fierce, unconquerable warriors who had built an empire that spanned the stars, and he saw, for the first time, how tired they all looked, how hard they worked to be strong, how much they had sacrificed to be feared. "We forgot how to trust," he said. "We forgot that strength is not the only thing that matters. We forgot that our cubs need more than training. They need warmth, gentleness, the freedom to simply be young." He turned back to, still sitting with the cubs around her. "You said your people build empires on trust and connection. I would like to learn more about this." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Perhaps our species could teach each other. You could show us what we have lost, and we could show you what we have gained." Smiled, that same warm, open smile that had drawn the cubs to her in the first place. "I would like that very much, Commander." 6 months later, the Treaty was signed. It was the most comprehensive alliance between the Empire and the human coalition in history. Trade, cultural exchange, military cooperation, scientific partnership, everything that Ambassador had originally asked for, and more. Attended the signing ceremony. She was no longer a junior. After the incident in the sacred grove, she had become the most famous human in space. The woman who tamed predator cubs, the woman who taught the High Commander to question. Myra stood beside her throughout the ceremony. The silver cub had grown considerably in 6 months. She now reached his shoulder, but she still pressed close when she was nervous. She still purred when stroked her fur. After the signing, High Commander approached them. He looked then at Myra, then back at. "I asked you once if you were brave or foolish," he said. "I have decided you are neither." "Oh, what am I then?" "You are human." He said the word differently now, not with dismissal, but with respect. "Your people have an impossible, irrational ability to look at something that could kill you and choose connection instead of fear. It is perhaps the most dangerous trait in the galaxy." Raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous." "To your enemies," smiled, a real smile with fangs showing. "The conquered 12 systems through strength, but I believe humans will conquer the galaxy through something we never understood, something we forgot how to give." "And what is that?" Looked at Myra, pressed against side, completely at peace. "Trust," he said. "Simple, powerful, impossible trust." And smiled because she knew he was right. That had always been humanity's greatest weapon. Not strength, not speed, not technology. Just the stubborn, beautiful belief that anything, even an apex predator, even an empire built on fear, could become a friend. All you had to do was reach out. And smile,